Hello and good evening. I'm Melissa Idris and you're watching Consider This. This is the show where we want you to consider and reconsider what you know of the news of the day. As the 12-day campaign period for the Melaka election draws to an end tonight, who will emerge the winner after polling day tomorrow? Now, it's a crowded arena. As you know, 112 candidates are contesting for 28 seats in the State Assembly, and voter turnout is a major concern. Is the race too close to call? Let's ask political analyst Dr. Zarini Azmi. She's a senior lecturer with USM's Unit for Research on Gender and Women, or better known as Kanita. Dr. Zarini, the three major coalitions that are contesting in the State Assembly for the seats in the State Assembly, Barisan, Perikatan and Pakatan. I'm just wondering, which coalition do you predict might have the advantage to win tomorrow?
Thank you, Melissa, for having me. Personally, I think it would be a tight competition for each contending political coalitions to win more than 15 seats. Yeah, and I think this is not good. A government without majority seat is not stable, and we are having this pilihan raya negeri because of this fact. But I'm also inclined to say that Barisan Nasional, especially UMNO, has a very strong presence in the state, especially in majority Malay seats. Of course, the battle would be between Perikatan and Barisan Nasional in those seats. PS may be able to retain their urban, the AP seat, except perhaps Gadek and Machap. I think that would be a very tight fight in those two seats. And I think, I honestly think that PH political strategy to nominate those two state lawmakers, Idris Harun and also Nur Azman, if I remember correctly, will affect people's trust or sympathy towards a PH. And this strategy may also influence the non-Malay. And we know in the last, two elections, PH and Pakatan Rakyat has enjoyed the support of Indians and Chinese voters. But it may not be the case in this election. And most Malay voters would gravitate towards Perikatan and also Barisan Nasional. Reason being, firstly, because Melaka is a small state and it has a strong political identification, local politics with a strong sense of community. We are talking about Melaka, the land of Hang Tuah, okay? That their political culture is very much centered around takkan Melayu hilang di dunia. But at the same time, we have to remember Melaka is also a state that has multi-ethnic interaction through socialization. People sort of know each other and they have the historical connection, bonding, whether being a Malay, Chinese or Peranakan or Indians. And secondly, diehard supporters won't shift, especially for rural and we are talking about diehard supporters for UMNO and PAS, and to them, these parties are able to champion Malay rights. That's why I said that PN and BN would there will be a battle between them in rural areas. At the same time, we have seen in PRU 40.
Sorry to interrupt you, Dr. Zarini. I just want to ask you on that note, just talking about Perikatan, Perikatan 2 days before polling day announced Mas Erayati as their chief ministerial candidate. I'm just wondering, if she wins, that will make her first female head of government of a state. Do you reckon that might tip the balance for Perikatan?
It is an interesting move, right, by Perikatan. I think it's a wonderful, to be honest, for many reasons. Yeah, I think it is a smart move to attract urban Malay women and young voters. Yeah, even the fence sitter. And if you look at their manifesto, it shows Perikatan's political strategy, which is targeting the young and women voters. And if you remember correctly, Perikatan has the highest number of women candidates, 6, which is about 17.6% as compared to Barisan Nasional and Pakatan Harapan. And then Perikatan Manifesto and Tan Sri Muhyiddin's PC display that the coalition determination to provide a good and a government with integrity, and they come up with this strategy to appoint a woman, a clean candidate to be the chief minister if they win this election. And it's also interesting because this is a new development for PAS as well. The partner in Perikatan, the fact that PAS is willing to endorse a woman to head or lead a state, again, it shows that it shows that whether male leaders willing to acknowledge women's potential leadership or not. Yeah. So they were not just So it's different from Selangor. So this time, PAS take this progressive, I think, step to endorse women as a leader in Melaka. I think this is a good thing. This is a good thing, and I hope it
is definitely a positive development. Yes.
Definitely, yeah.
Thank you so much, Dr. Zarini. Dr. Zarini Azmi from USM there. We're going to take a quick break and consider this, but after this, Shurat Kutan reporting from Melaka. He'll be speaking to independent candidate Mak Chi King. Stay tuned to consider this.
Amanah di tangan kita. Adat, budaya dan semangat menjadi kesinambungan perpaduan tanah air yang tercinta. Berteraskan adab yang terpahat di jiwa dan raga. Marilah bersama kita membina negara Malaysia.
Semua yang terjadi adalah berita, tetapi tiada siapa yang boleh bawakan yang terkini dan tergempar seperti kami.
Dilihat hanya memberi wang tanpa matlamat yang tepat. Dia tidak melakukan apa-apa kesalahan.
Untuk mendapatkan jawapan yang bermakna, kita perlu soalan yang tepat.
Amat sedih dengan apa yang berlaku ke atas.
Tiada ruang untuk berita palsu.
Negara kita telah merekodkan kes harian baru sebanyak
hanya fakta yang diberikan.
Amat penting untuk meneruskan perjuangan negara melawan pandemik ini.
Sentiasa memastikan suara anda, suara rakyat didengari.
Kenapa?
Membawakan apa yang penting.
Hi, welcome to Consider This. I'm Shurat Kutan and we're here in Melaka and I'm speaking to Mak Chi King. He is the independent candidate for the Bandar Hilir constituency. Mak, thank you so much for being on the show. I understand that you have a background in social work and that's what made me very interested because there are many independents in this race for the Melaka Assembly. Why as a social activist have you decided to stand for elections?
First of all, thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to express my intention and for the public to know more about myself. As I said, I think those who know me, as I say that they know that I have been involved in activism, especially in education. I'm currently the chairman of the Melaka Action Group for Parents and Education. We pick up educational issues which affected directly or indirectly our children in the schools and things like that. And currently I'm also the PTA chairman of the Tun Fatimah Form 6 College. And of course I also involved with some NGOs and things like that. And I was also the former PTA chairman of SMK St. Francis. That is located in the constituency of Bandar Hilir. But frankly, many people also have been asking for the same question: why I chose Bandar Hilir? You know, where I'm staying in Bukit Baru. They were very curious, and I want to tell them is that first of all, I'm a voter here. I'm a voter here. The same thing applies to my family member, and I'm also most of my service that I have done so far is also involved in this constitution. And let me say example, I think 3 years ago, when the government was saying that they want to dislocate or to move Melaka High School, I was the first one to protest, against the relocation of Melaka High School. The reason being given by the state government at that time was it caused congestion. The schools surrounding in Melaka Raya caused congestion.
Traffic congestion.
Yeah, traffic congestion, yes. So my point to them was Melaka High School, St. Francis, and the school in the vicinity, they have been there for tens or 100 years. And the reason that caused the traffic congestions are not these schools, are the development around the area. For example, you build the what they call it, all those what they call it, a mall. You build hotels over there, knowing that there are many schools there. Definitely, the concession will be there.
Right. So this is a planning issue, I understand.
Yes.
Right? Okay. Mark, I want to ask you about whether social activism in Melaka, and we can help us understand that civil society and individuals like you who are prominent in civil society in Melaka. Do you have a public profile? Is there publicity? Is the media? So did you come into this campaign already well known to your constituents?
As I said, what I call it, I have been involved in all these local issues. All right, I managed to also solve the problem of many what I call it, in one of the areas in Melaka. There's Plaza Melaka, where they have already built what they call it, the collections of fees, parking fees, where the municipal have already built up the stand, and they want to have the barrier has been built and things like that. And when we do the protest or the signature campaign, many of the people, even the businessmen there, were telling me that no point, everything has been built up. The chances of getting it demolished again is as good as zero. But we managed. I led the group of people, the businessmen there, and we managed to do it. Apart from that, what I call it, I'm one of the contributors, towards what we have now is the dual language program. I remember 2009, where the government wanted to abolish PPSMI. Right. That was 2009. And of course, many people were saying, Mark, you're fighting a gigantic task. Definitely, it's not easy. The government have decided to abolish it, that's it. But myself, with some right-thinking parents, we formed a group that is called MAPI. MAPI was established somewhere in 2009. And we did a lot with collaborations with Page, with Hope, and things like that. We did a lot of what they call it, homework. We went for demonstrations and things like that. We fought what people term as the, what they call it, a
losing battle.
A losing battle, yes. But deep in my heart, I was thinking that there is light at the end of the tunnel. We need to fight for the betterment of the children, for the betterment of our next generation. Why Maths and Science in English? I'm sure everyone will know the importance of having Maths and Science in English. And one thing I want to stress here is that I did not fight for my children, because my children, they were not affected at all. My children were already in secondary school. They were not in any way affected. But I believe in the cause.
Okay, so I get this, and it's very fascinating to get an insight into local issues and civil society here. But when it comes to voting, Malaysians have a certain calculation in their mind, right? And the narrative that has been dominant is that there's a battle between the big coalitions, right? How do you see yourself persuading voters with your background, but who will say, but I better give it to one of the two coalitions or three coalitions now, because that's where it's going to matter. I will waste my vote if I vote for you as an independent. How do you address that question?
Because frankly, based on my past record, I have done things that even the state assemblymen, they are not willing to do it, or they are not able to do it. Like as what I say, PPSMI. I have met many of the so-called politicians. They're state assemblymen, they are even MPs, but they are not willing to come out and voice their stand, saying that they have party stand. Though personally, they feel that PPSMI is good, but because of the party stand, they are not able to make a public statement to support me. So that's why I see that, what they call that, my record, that I'm sincere. I'm sincere to help the public. So the same thing coming back to Bandar Hilir this time, I'm sincere. I want to be the turning point. I want people to know that politics is not a game. Politics is not what do you call that, a chess, no? In this pandemic, first of all, I would like to stress that this state election is unnecessary because of the pandemic and things like that. All right? And still, I'm sure the movement of chess have been done a couple months. It cannot be overnight kind of thing. So during this pandemic, by right, the politician, our leader, our state leaders, should do what they think is right, is to help us to solve the pandemic problem, and not to play chance and things like that. At the end, they thought they have checkmated the other party. But the other party have checkmated that. Not only them, we public has also been checkmated.
So there's a lot of concern about voter turnout. The feeling is that people are angry. People, like you say, think this is an unnecessary issue that's really about elite politicians making chess moves. Do you expect, and you've been going around and speaking to people, that voter turnout will be low?
Yes, exactly. This stirred me to come out. This stirred me to step forward. Once the election date was announced, I went around and talked to my friends and asked them how did they feel. They said, no, this time we are not going to vote. No point, you will waste my time. At the end of the day, they are frog jumping here and there and come back to the square one. But if people like you have proven, you have the record, coming out to stand, yeah, we will vote for you. This is the feeling.
Mark, why isn't somebody like yourself, with your track record, been recruited into a political party? Is that you don't want to join a political party, or they don't want people like you in their political parties?
Frankly, I know we are all concerned about the political development in Malaysia on the whole. All right? And of course, as I said, we know what is happening with these political parties and things like that. Definitely, I mean, I have friends, who are political leaders and things like that. Okay, but I just feel that once we are involved with a political party, our hands are tied. Like the example that I said to you about PPSMI and things like that, our hands are tied. So without the political party, but don't equalize. Independent means you are alone. Don't forget how I fought for PPSMI. It's the support of all those people behind me. The parents, those people, right-thinking parents, right-thinking people who believe in PPSMI. And the same thing applies now. I believe that the right-thinking voters, especially in Bandar Hilir, will think alike, but think the same thing like me, that we need a change, we need a turning point, we need to teach the politician a lesson, that don't take us for granted. Just do what you want and you think that we will just follow your play. So I want to be the turning point. Though it's a gigantic task, but I believe, with my passion, with my conviction, I believe we will be able to achieve it.
What about the question of a level playing field? Often opposition parties, and all the parties I think in contesting have been in opposition by now at some point in time, always feel that the system is weighed against them. That access to media, access to state resources, and all that are limited for them. How has it been for you? I mean, how much is this costing you, and how are you making, putting yourself out that with the limited resources?
As I said, we know our limitation. Of course, we do not have the media support and things like that. Okay, of course, I have a team as well. I say, though as an independent, I'm not alone. I still have a team of people supporting me. That's why I'm doing lots of video recordings. I'm going around talking with friends, though we are not allowed to distribute flyers, but I just talk to them. And I'm surprised. When I go around, the response, initially I thought it will be very cool, people will only just say, no, I will vote for the logo, But to my surprise, a big percentage of those people that I met, they are very supportive. They say, no, yeah, I know you, you are Mak Chikin. It made me very, contented and very happy that this time the turning point should be there. This time we will be able to make it because public tend to realize that they have been played out.
Okay, and if you're not elected, what will you do?
As I said, I have been social activism. I will continue doing what I'm doing. And now this is already my passion. It's already in my blood. I will continue doing what I'm going to do, and of course this will not demoralize me. That's why I say my aim is to win, but of course I know it's a gigantic task. This is a stronghold of a political party, and of course I do hope miracle will happen. But if you're ready the other way around, it doesn't matter. I have nothing to lose. I just want to prove a point that do not treat us as fool, and this is a turning point. I'm hoping Malakans, especially in Bandar Hilir, will also come together with me and rise up and show them that we can do it.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you, Shah.
I've been speaking to Mak Chikin. He's the independent candidate for Banda Hileh in the Melaka state polls.
Budaya dan semangat menjadi kesinambungan perpaduan tanah air yang tercinta. Berteraskan adab yang terpahat di jiwa dan raga. Marilah bersama kita membina negara Malaysia.
Semua yang terjadi adalah berita, tetapi tiada siapa yang boleh bawakan yang terkini dan tergempar seperti kami.
Dilihat hanya memberi wang tanpa matlamat yang tepat. Dia tidak melakukan apa-apa kesalahan.
Untuk mendapatkan jawapan yang bermakna, kita perlu soalan yang tepat.
Amat sedih dengan apa yang berlaku kat atas.
Tiada ruang untuk berita palsu.
Negara kita telah merekodkan kes harian baru sebanyak
Hanya fakta yang diberikan.
Amat penting untuk meneruskan perjuangan negara melawan pandemik ini.
Sentiasa memastikan suara anda, suara rakyat didengari.
Kenapa?
Membawakan apa yang penting di mana sahaja anda berada.
Kerana kita hendak putuskan rantaian jangkitan.
Hi, thanks so much for staying with Consider This. I'm Melissa Idris, and just before the break, we heard Sharad Kutin's conversation with Mak Chikin, independent candidate for Banda Hileh in Melaka. Sharad has been on the ground in Melaka this week, getting a sense of the election campaign in the lead up to polling day tomorrow, Saturday, the 20th of November. Let's cross to him now, reporting from Melaka. Sharad, hello, good to see you. How has it been in Melaka? I know that you've spent a lot of your time talking to political candidates there. What kind of sense are you getting about the election campaign so far?
Yeah, Melissa, it's I think the least exciting campaign that I've experienced in the last 25 years or so. Partly because there are no charamas or there are very little public engagements. And one Malakan told me, when I asked him what he thought, how he thought the election was going, he said, well, maybe it's a question of flags. The party with the most, or coalition with the most flags will get it. And there is a bit of a poster flag war, but even that does seem a little subdued. But you do see, at least with the main contenders, meaning the three main coalitions, BNPN and PH, their flags are up by the accounts of this Grab driver. He said he thought PH would win just on flags alone. But I think what's really interesting about Melaka is that if we think about it in about three perspectives, right? The perspective of political parties, the perspective of social activists, who I've actually spoken to quite a bit here, and voters who I have had the least amount of contact with. They seem to have perhaps different concerns, and that's what I've had some sense of. It's a small state, but it's also has its complexity.
Sharad, there was a lot of talk about concerns that voter turnout might be quite low on polling day. I mean, is that something that political parties are looking at?
Yeah, they are, and I think one of the things that they're trying to do is to create a narrative to counter the fear. So one is the fear of COVID, of course, and I believe voting is staggered. So as a voter, you'll know which time frame or time band that you're allowed to go cast your vote. The other is not so much fear, but it's a frustration and perhaps a little exhaustion and fatigue that a lot of analysts have spoken about, and what activists are trying to say to voters is, well, this is a time for a reset. Yes, we've had troubles. Yes, we had the fall of many governments now, but this is the time to reset. And so we need your vote. In fact, I think by some estimates, a 70% turnout would be really good. And, because depending on who you are, those estimates vary from, the 50s up to 80 perhaps. But again, in comparison to the 2018 election, and I think for parties that want the same outcomes as 2018, voter turnout will have to be high.
Okay, and you said a little earlier that you've been talking a lot to social activists, hearing out their concerns. What have they been telling you?
Yeah, so this is, I think, is the most interesting story, because I think the media sometimes, we're focused on who's going to win government or who's going to form government, but it doesn't necessarily impact or tell us enough about how governance is going to be. And governance is both about what the new government is or who is in it, as much as it is about the existing structures, right? And also a certain amount of question of culture, political culture. And so, what these activists have alerted to me to is just a certain poverty of imagination among policymakers and people in government about low quality of those who are in politics. Politics in Melaka isn't necessarily attracting the most highly qualified, especially, when some of the problems that they face, say, for instance, a lack of jobs for young people, which means that, in some areas of Melaka, you have essentially old people or older people, and the young people do not live in Melaka. This is a problem, and it's a structural one. There's, of course, the problem of tourism, a certain dependency on tourism. Then, of course, there are all these this uneven development and mega projects around land reclamation, which essentially, Melissa, is about quick money for the state, for its coffers, but with really disastrous implications for the state in the long term. So a lot of empty buildings, empty malls, and yet more plans to create real estate, which might not, in fact, be purchased and might not, house thriving businesses. So there's a real mismatch, poor planning. These are some of the many stories one hears. Also, of course, the perennial Malaysian problem of corruption and how politicians, almost routinely demand, demand inducements and rewards for, helping people out.
Well, thank you for that, Sharad. I mean, it's good that you've had all those different perspectives while being in Melaka. Hope to see you back in KL on Monday. Thank you so much for giving us your observations. And that wraps up this episode of Consider This. But before I leave you, I want to remind you that you can tune in to Astro AWANI for a full day of coverage on the Melaka elections, how polling is going, as well as the results as they come in. So don't forget to tune in for that, starting from 7 a.m. tomorrow. And I'm Melissa Idris, wrapping up this episode. Thank you so much for watching. See you on Monday.